Welcome to episode 32 of the LorainCounty.com Business Insights Podcast. I'm your host, Ed Skimmon, and today we're talking with Jack Hall, candidate for Lorain County Sheriff. Join us as Jack shares his motivations for running, his extensive law enforcement background, and his 15-point plan to improve community trust and safety. He also discusses the importance of creating a public corruption unit and his community engagement strategies through the proposed Warden program. This episode is part of the 2024 Candidate Spotlight Series aimed at providing an additional way to learn about local leaders running for office. Before we get started, I wanted to share a quick disclaimer. Both of the companies I co-founded, Emerge Inc. and LorainCounty.com, have professional relationships with some of the candidates, and I also count a few of them as personal friends. To ensure fairness, we invited all local candidates to participate and record an episode completely free of charge. Each candidate running for the same office was asked the exact same questions, and aside from removing any unnecessary sounds and long pauses, we kept the editing to a minimum. For a full list of local candidates and issues, visit loraincounty.com/election. And on election night, visit loraincounty.com for real-time election results. Here is my conversation with Jack Hall.
Jack Hall, and I'm running for the office of Lorain County Sheriff.
Welcome, Jack. Thanks for joining us and sharing your insights. Can we start with what motivated you to run for Lorain County Sheriff?
I've been doing this job for 33, going on 34 years now. And actually, I was approached, not this past election, but the one before, by the Lorain County Republican Party to run for the office. And unfortunately, it was like a month and a half before the filing deadline. And I took it, unfortunately, at the time, is that they wanted a placeholder, somebody's name in the slot to say that a Republican was running for Lorain County Sheriff. Took a serious look at that because I said, if I'm going to run for this, being very serious about anything else, having a plan, more or less like a business plan on what you want to do. Part of that plan is, of course, is also influencing others, raising money, and bringing people to your side of thinking of support of what is needed. And that side of thinking is actually reversed because it's what the 319,000 people in Lorain County want from their sheriff. Because I've been a police chief, you have a boss, either a safety director or a mayor, somebody else in that position. As sheriff, you are the people's elected law enforcement representative, and 319,000 people are your boss in Lorain County. So I declined that offer at the time, and my wife also thought that I was absolutely nuts for even considering it. And being at retirement age, and why would I want to take on anything like this? And then it was about a month after our current sheriff was sworn into office, I was approached again. And so anyways, I went to the meeting. Going out the door, my wife looked at me. She always now says, have fun, which I think is oxymoronic when I go out to any political event. And she didn't say have fun. She said, don't commit yourself to anything. So I came back, had the conversation with her. She was not for me running, didn't have any conversation with my family due to the fact is if she wasn't supportive, there was no sense asking anybody else. After that meeting, ironically, we're in a township, so we're protected by the deputies of the sheriff's office. More and more cars started coming by the house as we were sitting out on our back patio, which has a full view. We're on a corner lot. And deputies would see, wave, they would stop their car, stop it and say hello, and they would tell us the stories about what is currently going on in the sheriff's office and dreams and desires that they had to serve the public better that they don't get the opportunity currently right now to do. After the fifth encounter, my wife was sitting on the back patio and she just lifted her legs up to put them either on the table or something else. And she goes, after hearing all that, I think you know what you need to do. And I looked at her very surprised because she was adamantly against this. And she said, after hearing all that, she said, somebody with the experience has to step up and attempt to fix what's going on there. So I talked to the rest of my family about it, and we all decided that I was going to do this. We would be in 150% to do it. And I'm very fortunate. I started running 3.5 years ahead of time. I thought the current sheriff was going to be my opponent in this race. And as somebody who's been in the job 24 years, that was going to take a lot of footwork on my part, because even though I started my career here in Lorain County, started with Sheffield Police Department, was there for almost 4 years, and came here to Avon Lake as a patrol officer, and then was promoted to the detective sergeant to run the bureau here in Avon Lake. And about half my career was spent here, and then I had an opportunity. I was recruited to become the captain of special operations for Cleveland Metro Parks Police Department, assessed for that position like anyone else did over there. I did get the position. And that was probably still goes hands down as the greatest law enforcement experience of my entire career due to the breadth and diversity of the Metro Parks itself. And I don't think there was anything in the Ohio Revised Code we didn't investigate. And so I wanted to make sure that we brought that experience of being a captain in the largest regional law enforcement agency in the state of Ohio, encompassing 5 counties around Cleveland, and the diversity of that experience from urban neighborhoods to suburban neighborhoods to rural Hinckley and Medina County, the east side, Chagrin River Valley, going up through Geauga County into Lake County as well as we had that, and even the reservation off of on the west side there in Westlake, and going into North Ridgeville and Lorain County for what we did there. And having that experience and large scale investigations and preparing for large scale events. And that's a lot of things that happen in Lorain County on a regular basis, such as the Black River Landing and the concerts that happen there. The Cleveland Orchestra being in downtown Elyria and performing there, we want to make sure that the public is safe, because today we just had a very unfortunate incident this week down in Georgia in which 4 students were killed in a shooting that had happened down there. We're not out of the woods, so to speak, in regards to people taking their aggressions out on innocent bystanders in the public. And we have to make sure that we're prepared for that. And I believe that through my experience and what we've done, I'm prepared to protect the people of this county in the best way that we can and to prepare them for that protection and to be able to service them in the best manner that we can.
If elected, can you outline your main priorities when you become Lorain County Sheriff?
The main priorities are based on a 15-point plan that we have on our website. And about half of those points we were introducing about one every 2 weeks. Now we'll be stepping it up to the election that we're going to change that to 2 a week for the remainder of the election cycle. But the one that we just introduced today, which was the creation of what we call the Warden program, the Community Warden program. Currently, right now, we have deputies that are assigned to the Township Impact Unit, is what they call it. And those deputies specifically take reports. They address the township trustees and any complaints, thefts, issues that are happening within the townships. And we get a lot of information from around the county because when you're running, you represent all the counties, not just the townships. So you represent the cities, you represent the villages as well. And one of the things that I noticed is there are some police departments, like here in Avon Lake, they do a phenomenal job with community outreach. They do a great job with their website, their social media presence. And there's a lot of bidirectional communication that takes place between the police department and the community. We want to amp that up to a greater extent. And we're going to create, based on the size of the political subdivision, we will have a minimum of 2 to a maximum of 4 what are called wardens, which are citizens that we will work with, community groups. We will work with the political leaders of those communities. We'll work with the police departments. And we want to pick between 2 and 4 residents. And they don't even have to like us. We want residents that truly their basic core, their foundation is they love their community, because that's something that a lot of people don't understand that are not in law enforcement. You can't do this job, Ed, if you don't love what you do and you love the community and the people that you protect. And I think we've deviated from that over the course of the last few years. There's been friction and many large incidents that have happened over the past few years in the country that now people don't even want to go into law enforcement. And I've told this story, and probably anybody listening to this is going to say, oh, this is ad nauseum, I don't want to hear it. But when I came to Avon Lake, I went to the Avon Lake High School to take the civil service exam. There were only 3 positions open here. I walked in there and I'm like, I don't have a shot at this. There were 300 people taking that test. What are the odds that I'm going to make the top 3 to come here to Avon Lake? Fortunately, I made the top 3. I got hired. Now we have like cities like Cleveland that have 300 positions open, and we're lucky if we get 3 people to show up for that test. We have to turn this around to create that trusting relationship and make law enforcement look as a career, a vocation, and a desire and a drive to people that want to help their community. And so when we talk about the Warden program, we are looking at true people that are inspired by helping the community, people who want to be involved in what's going on in the community. And that warden is going to be the conduit between the community and the Lorain County Sheriff's Office. Now, the commitment's going to be pretty intense as well, and this would be divided up between the 2 or 4 people that would represent the community, but we expect to meet with them every week. And so immediately after the administrative staff meeting of the Sheriff's Office, we move into the warden meeting, which will be like a circuit tour around Lorain County, because we're not going to expect somebody from Vermilion that constantly drive to Wellington or somebody from Avon Lake that drive to Elyria all the time. So we'll move the meeting around the county to be able to help facilitate all that. But we'll be coming out to those meeting locations to hear everything of what the wardens do. And one of their primary responsibilities is to attend the township trustee, the village council, or the city council meetings to say, hey, this is what's going on in Amherst this week. This is what's going on in Avon. And so, therefore, prime example of that could be the sheriff's office will have resources that many city police departments won't, and truck scaling and weighing, for example, is one. So we've heard this several times that somebody complains to their local police department. We have this heavy construction traffic, which is going down a residential street. They're ripping the entire street up, and who's going to pay for this? Of course, overweight trucks can be an issue, and we want to make sure that the city's local ordinance is enforced. So we would reach out to the police chief of that city where we heard that complaint come in from our wardens who were at that council meeting. We would call the police chief and we would say, starting tomorrow, whatever day, we can have a couple deputies from the Weights and Measures Unit from Lorain County Sheriff's Office. Have one of your officers hop in with them, and you can write all the tickets under city code. So the city is getting reimbursed back for those overweight truck fines and that's going on, and help the complaint that was made and repair the road. If for some reason the department would not want to participate in that, we're still going to listen to the residents' concern, because it doesn't matter if they live in Avon or if they live in Columbia Station. They're our constituents, all 319,000 people in Lorain County. We'll go out there and we'll do the enforcement. And then that warden can then go back to that next city council meeting and say, hey, we heard you. This is what the sheriff's office did. And a matter of fact, we cited 7 trucks on that. They're going to be appearing in Avon Lake Municipal Court in regards to these dates. And we heard you. And unfortunately, a lot of times people are more comfortable talking to one of their neighborhood peers than they are calling the police. And working here in Avon Lake, when I was in the Detective Bureau back then, Ed, if you remember, we used to have this paper called the Avon Lake Press, and it would come out on Wednesday. The criminal activity would take place, like we would have a bunch of residential burglary complaints or breaking into cars that would happen on a Friday or Saturday night. And of course, when we would canvass the neighborhood, no one would see any. The Avon Lake Press would come out on Wednesday, and we would man the phones in the Detective Bureau because somebody would read the press and they would call us and they would say, oh, at 11 o'clock that night, we saw so-and-so walking down the street. Call us on Friday night at 11. Don't wait till it comes out in the Avon Lake Press. We didn't want to bother you. It's our job. It's our job to service you. And it always amazed me how many times no one wanted to call 911. No one wanted to bother the police, even though that we're servicing you. So one of the drives of this warden program is to make sure that if somebody still feels that way about calling the police, and they're more comfortable talking with a community peer of theirs, and these wardens will have their own business cards, they will have a county email address, their numbers will be on there, and they'll pass those cards out to people in the community. And then in addition to that, another part of their job will be going around to local businesses to solicit things like gasoline gift cards and things like that, because we also want to drive around the community and be able to recognize accomplishments of the community, like somebody abiding by a speed limit signs that are out there, stop signs, appropriate driving, turning their music down if it's too loud, and being able to present through the warden those rewards, so to speak, to give to the community, because we want to know that there's also positive interactions with law enforcement, especially in traffic enforcement and dealing with road patrol, that they may not normally see. We do a great job with the kids' school resource officers. Just like down in Georgia, we had 2 school resource officers. We had a tragedy of 4 people losing their lives. But a lot of people are crediting those 2 school resource officers for saving many more lives that had happened down there. And we just have to keep highlighting these positive interactions with law enforcement. So that's one of the biggest things taking office that we want to do right away, is to be able to rebuild that trust and make sure that the residents know that we're here for them.
A large part of our audience is business owners and managers. What would your election and the implementation of your priorities, how would they benefit local businesses?
Local businesses, that's twofold. Number one is that we hear it all the time, or breaking and enterings, which have happened. We've had several gun stores broken into around the county, some in the township, some in the cities. And a lot of times business owners are stymied by the fact that it took so long for law enforcement to respond to this alarm. Were there other things that could have been done for the business to be able to protect it? Frauds and scams, which also affect the business, that we want to make sure that is looked at more closely by the sheriff's office. And then another complaint that we've heard continually from people that own business: where's my fair shake in attempting to address my government, attempting to get contracts with things that are going on? One of the biggest issues that's been a successful platform that we've run on is the creation of the Public Corruption Unit within the Lorain County Sheriff's Office. We've heard that from a lot of business in regards to they see things that take place, either with county contract, government contracts, or anything else that happens. And they said they report it and always falls on deaf ears. Our current prosecutor's office isn't doing anything. Our current sheriff's office isn't doing anything. So we want to make sure that we're listening to business. We're listening to business owners And we want to make sure that we assist them in creating that level playing field as a business owner in Lorain County. So they get the same fair shake that everybody else does, no matter if you've contributed to somebody's political campaign or if you haven't.
Let's switch over and talk a little bit about you. What's your background? I know you told us a little bit about it, but let's
Mhm.
go through your background.
Well, 34 years in law enforcement. I started my career in 1990 in Sheffield Village. I was an auxiliary officer, went to the academy, became a reserve, then a part-time officer over there. Then quickly learned because my parents were extremely disappointed that I went to Bowling Green State University, got a degree in journalism and psychology, and they thought that I completely wasted every dime of education. And so I thought, well, if I'm going to make money at this job, I have to go to a community that's going to pay a little more than what I was getting paid at the time. And Avon Lake had that position open. We did the testing, went through everything. I was very fortunate with two other great officers that worked for Avon Lake, Don Pashan and Sean Balkelman, who ended up retiring as a lieutenant here in Avon Lake. The three of us started together. And then took a promotional exam for sergeant, was ironically put in charge of the detective bureau when I had absolutely no investigative experience whatsoever. And I thought, wow, for them to trust me with that position was pretty phenomenal. And then, unfortunately, 8 days into my career as a detective, we had a major political corruption scandal in Avon Lake come onto my desk with only being in the bureau for a little over a week. It was a great experience that we had. The current sheriff has also allowed me at that time to be on the task force with the county sheriff's office. And that was a great learning experience to be able to move on and prepare me for the next position that I was not actually even looking for at the time. I was approached by a couple different people and they said, hey, there's this great opportunity in Cleveland Metro Parks. And I never even thought about that, or at that time it was known as the Ranger Department. And I thought, why would I want to do this? I'm having a good time here on Avon Lake. And so when I looked at the position and it was overseeing all the special operations, being the laboratory, being the detectives, being the canines, horses, dive teams, and all of this, I thought that's a pretty interesting job. And other than managing horses and being a diver, I thought I was a pretty good fit for it. It was one of the most intense law enforcement assessment processes that I ever partook in. And so in the end, I did get the position. And even though two of the people that were my lieutenants that ended up reporting me that I competed with for the exact same job ended up being probably one of the greatest group of people that I have ever had the opportunity of working with in my life. And you look at an organization such as the Metro Parks Law Enforcement Agency, and a lot of people think we have to do with outdoor things, and we do. And the biggest compliment that we got is because we also did a lot of death investigations in the Metro Parks as well. And Dr. Balraj, she was the last coroner of Cuyahoga County before they switched to a medical examiner system. We got a big compliment down in Columbus because she had me stand up in front of a crowd and she said, I want to introduce him. He's the captain in Cleveland Metro Parks. No one does outdoor death investigations better than his agency. So that was a huge compliment on her part. And we did everything from child exploitation cases to gambling cases to tobacco fraud and smuggling cases. We had an enormous opportunity to work on several different things. And then that allows your younger officers and your younger detectives to be able to get that experience in all those very high profile cases. And all that does is better them to do their job, to be able to serve the community better. Because when you have situations of child abduction, some type of human trafficking issue which is going on, a lot of smaller local police departments don't get that experience to do those investigations on a regular basis. So by involving them in like a major crimes task force environment, you're giving officers from smaller departments who normally wouldn't have that opportunity to do those types of investigations to be involved in that and to also be able to serve the community better. Because we watch too much TV today and the public thinks that we can solve everything in 60 minutes and it doesn't always work out that way.
Outside of work, what are your hobbies and interests, and how do they help recharge you?
I have a 4-month-old new grandson who was born. Our daughter and her husband gave us that blessed opportunity. You look for that time now that you want to make sure we'll babysit them. And we don't know if the grandparents are being taken advantage of at any point in time, but will gladly be taken advantage of. We also enjoy golf, but I don't get to do it enough. I'm also an avid shooter as well. Again, don't get to do that enough because this campaign has taken up a lot of that time. And being able to have the opportunity to spend phenomenal time with a very brilliant woman, one of the smartest people that I know, who is my wife, that's been a great opportunity. And between the two of us, we have 4 kids total, 2 from each of our first marriages, and they have been just an absolute blessing to both of us.
Last question, what else should voters know about you prior to voting in November?
Knowing that they're going to get a person of integrity, get a person of trust. And I know there's a slogan of some other people out there that experience matters. You have to have experience in actually running a large agency. I have that experience running a large agency, and it's not just in doing detective work, or half of my career has been spent in police administration. And unfortunately, I could probably write a book with a few human resources professionals out there that would probably make the hair stand up on somebody's neck. But there haven't been too many situations that I have not experienced that have happened before me, or that we've had to deal with, that we would not have to deal with the Lorain County Sheriff's Office. And we just want to make sure that if those situations arise, that I do have the experience and we have handled many of those situations, and we are here to serve them. And they have to understand that we hold true to our oath, and we hold true to the service to the community.
Finally, where can people get more information on your candidacy and connect with you?
We're all over social media. You can search for Jack Hall for Sheriff. Even if you go to Google, you just search Lorain County Sheriff, you don't even put my name in there. We have always, for the past year and a half, come up in the top 10 in Google. That will take you right to our Facebook page. It will also take you to our webpage, which is hallforsheriff.com. And if you go there too, you can also see our 15-point plan that is laid out, and a bunch of information about us, me, and our upcoming events.
Thanks, Jack, for joining us and sharing your insights.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the LorainCounty.com Business Insights Podcast. We hope you found this conversation informative and that it provided some ideas that will help your business continue to grow. Please follow us on your favorite podcast platform to hear each episode, where we shine a spotlight on local resources that will boost your business. And we want to hear from you. Email ed@loraincounty.com to share your feedback and topic ideas.